The improvement of the democratic election system. Aizhong Lin Australia. In today's democratic politics in the world, the members of the Legislative Council or the top executive are mainly elected every few years. Election is an important event held every few years in a democratic countries. For example, the US presidential election is held every 4 years. Let the world beware of it, anxious for it, and mad for it. Why have elections become so crazy in democratic politics? The reason is mostly due to the single constituency, one-seat system, that is, only one representative can be elected from that constituency, and this elected representative basically takes the winner in an election cycle. Just like the US presidential election, only one person can be elected in 4 years, and once elected, the winner takes all. Some people say, how does he take all the winners? Isn't there still parliamentary restriction? But the fact is that no matter what the constraints are, the winner of his party takes all. Opponents have to endure the suffering of the next 4 years. Therefore, once the supporters, especially political fanatics, lose the election, they will be anxious from the end of the election, and will do everything possible to think about how to win back in the next term. In the process of their opponents being in power, they must do their best to slander the government, regardless of whether the government is doing well or not. It must only look for the faults of its opponents, so that the government may not be able to make new decisions smoothly and feel at a loss as to what to do. When the next election is won, their opponents will repeat the process of the previous 4 years. Such a cycle repeats. The government often do things with half the effort. In the course of the election, in order to please the voters, candidates write checks indiscriminately. They use deception and falsification to discredit their competitors, and even use deception and falsification to discredit foreign governments that have nothing to do with their own elections. The candidates bring the ugliness of human nature to the fullest. How can we improve the election problems in democratic countries, allow healthy competition between opponents, and let voters see the real governance capabilities, rather than mud wars that only rely on mouths to fight each other? I propose a way to improve the election, taking the US presidential election as an example to illustrate the following. 1. Change the election cycle of the President of the United States to once every 8 years. Once every 4 years is too frequent. 2. The final result of the presidential election has 2 winners. That is to say, in the 8 years after the election, both of them can be in power, not the winner takes all, and supporters and political fanatics on both sides do not need to be anxious. Even if one term is not good enough, the next term will continue to give you opportunities to improve your policies and management. 3. The terms of office of the 2 presidents during the 8-year period are determined by the percentage of votes they receive. If each gets 50%, each will be in power for 4 years. If one gets 60% of the vote, he will be in power. 8 of 60% equals 4 points and 8 years, and his opponent will be in power. 8 minus 4 points and 8 equals 3 points and 2 years. If an opponent gets less than 20% of the votes, his ruling period is cancelled and his opponent is in power for 8 consecutive years. As far as the history of the US presidential election is concerned, both sides always have the opportunity to govern, but there is a slight difference in the time of governing. During the competition, you don't need to scold your opponents, and you don't have to play all kinds of tricks just to win a few more days. As long as you introduce and demonstrate your policies and management abilities for the voters to approve. 4. The order of ruling power is chosen by the winner first. The single constituency, one-vote system for the Legislative Council election can also be carried out in the same way. This improvement will also solve the problem that one party always wins in non-critical constituencies, while in key constituencies the issue of chaos and fights against each other.